Hello, I'm Lyn Jarvis, contributing editor of Across the Fence, and today we continue our adventure in the historic and fascinating country of Turkey, with the beautiful Aegean Sea and the town of Cappadocia as our background. We'll be exploring the region of Cappadocia, famed for its homes and temples that are built in rock cliffs, and end our visit in Ankara, the capital of Turkey. And I'm pleased to tell you that along the way, we're going to see a performance by the exciting and traditional Turkish Whirling Dervishes. A lot to see and do, so let's get started. Moving inland from the Aegean Sea, our first stop is Pamukkale, meaning cotton castle in Turkish. Should we have brought our cross-country skis, we wondered, as it sure looked like a mountain of snow with a village there in the valley below. But upon closer inspection, we discovered this wonder of nature is deposits of travertine, a sedimentary stone deposited by hot water that flows through the rocks, and during the cooling process, it is transformed into these sparkling white calcium deposits. The mineral bath spas have been used since Roman days, and tourists from around the world journey here to enjoy the beauty and uniqueness of the place, including my traveling companions Johanna Gingras from Montreal, who works for the Canadian National Railway, and Marco Ayala, the video editor for our show today. After waiting in the warm thermal springs, we were ready to explore the ancient city of Hierapolis, a thriving healing center for some 4,000 years. Doctors used the nearby water as a source of medical treatment for their ailing patients. At its peak, archaeologists believe up to 150,000 people lived in the city. This is their impressive theater where spectators enjoyed athletic contests, theatrical performances, and political rallies. The theater is now under restoration, and many reliefs and statues have been excavated from the site. There were two ways to get in and out of Hierapolis. To the north is the Gate of Domitian, constructed around 83 AD, that led to Frontina Street, the main colonnade that was the heart of the city during Roman times, with shops, public buildings, and eateries, all under covered walkways. Recently, archaeologists found the tomb of Apostle Philip in a hillside church above the city. Crosses and other religious symbols can be seen carved over the arches. One of the 12 disciples of Jesus, Philip was tortured and crucified here for his Christian teachings. Few of us realize that Turkey was the first religious center of Christianity. Facing bitter persecution in Jerusalem and Rome, thousands of Christians escaped to central Turkey, where they carved homes, cities, and churches into these soft lava stone mountains. 36 enormous cities still exist, and we'll be visiting one of them, discovered in 1972 by a local priest while working in his garden, and we'll meet him later. But first, a visit to St. Johns Basilica. After the death of Christ, John came here with Mary to Ataturk Hill, where for almost 100 years he wrote and spread the word of Christianity. He is credited as the author of 5 books in the New Testament, including the book of Revelations. Much of his time was spent in these beautiful surroundings. Today, pilgrims from around the world travel to Nightingale Mountain and make their way up this path lined with sweet-scented olive and pine trees to visit the house of Mary, where she died at the age of 64. It is believed that St. John found this place for her to spend her final days. Inside the house, a statue of Mary sits atop an altar with a few flickering candles for illumination and 2 prayer benches in front. The Catholic Church confirmed the holiness of the site in 1967 after a visit by Pope Paul VI. Muslims, just as Christians, honor her as Maryam, the mother of the prophet Jesus, mentioning her name more often in the Quran than in the New Testament. And amazing to me was seeing the wall of prayers, composed of thousands of pieces of paper, each one left by a visitor. Regardless of one's religious beliefs, it is hard not to be moved by a site that so many find so sacred. The ambience continued as we traveled a short distance to a restaurant in an area known as Hidden Valley. It's a family-run business that features locally grown food with some of the nicest views around. It was a lovely early spring day, and while lunch was being prepared, I enjoyed a sight that we don't see here in the Northeast. Hundreds of olive trees as far as the eye could see. Did you know that olive trees can live 300 to 400 years, and that there are more than 85 million of them in Turkey? The wildflowers were also in full bloom, and in this small patch I could count 4 varieties. Time had slipped away, and when I got back to the table, everyone else was served. That's my chair on the left. And believe you me, I was hungry, and in an embarrassingly short time, my plate was empty. We've all heard of silk carpets from the Middle East, and we got to see where they are made. In this particular store, some 11,800 beautiful carpets are in stock, and the presentation was a show in itself. We know these rugs are made from silk, but where does all that silk come from? We were amazed to see, and no wonder these rugs cost a lot.
The cocoon is, it's like a wool ball. It's a piece of thread which is about a mile long. And it has 2 ends. One end is inside, one end is outside. We need to catch the end which is outside by beating on them with a broom like this. When it's boiled enough time, it gets soft enough, and then we use that broom to beat on them. So when we beat them, the silk threads will stick to the broom, so we can catch the beginning of the fibers. This gentleman will show you. And sir, could you please step back, because this is boiling water. This is like fishing, actually, catching fish. See? And the first the first threads are so much mixed, and they cannot be untied, impossible. That's why the first part is going to be eliminated. Rather than trying to untie them, it's better we just cut that part and continue pulling them. Yes. It looks like a spider net, by the way, doesn't it? That's why we call him Spider-Man. I tell you what, he's 62 years old and he cannot jump off the buildings anymore. He used to.
At the beginning of the show, I told you we would see some of Turkey's Whirling Dervishes. It's a solemn and sacred ceremony. While whirling, the right hand is extended to the sky to receive God's blessing. The left hand points toward earth as the way to convey God's spiritual gift to all of us, without discrimination in regard to belief, class, or race. Just like Vermont, the weather can turn on a dime here in central Turkey, and with 3 layers, I was still cold. On this chilly morning, we arrived at the Cappadocia region dating from 2000 BC. That's some 4,000 years ago. It's hard to grasp just how old things are in this part of the world. For example, people have lived in these dwellings carved into the soft rocks for more than 4,000 years. Earlier in the show, I mentioned that thousands of Christians came to Turkey to escape the religious persecution going on in Jerusalem. Many of them chose to dig and live in underground cities, and we'll be exploring one of them, Ozkonak. How long it took for the cities to be completed and how many people it took to build them is still unknown, but it must have been an enormous task given the technology of the time. Our guide Masud gave us a brief introduction to the underground city of Ozkonak.
the people were able to stay here for a long time. They had an interesting system here. They had, these kind of underground cities had air shafts. Through the middle of the underground city there was a very deep air shaft, like a very deep well. And what they also did, that's very interesting, very smart, at the bottom of the underground city, they had one level which was filled with rainwater. The air shaft, in rainy days, drip of rainwater flew into the last level, deepest level, and that was their water source.
Not surprisingly, places like Ozkonak played an important role in the spread of Christianity, as shown by the number of churches and secret places of worship that have been discovered. The cities were subject to invaders, and an ingenious system of millstone doors was devised that could be rolled into place when an emergency arose. And unique to Ozkonak, the doors are lined with small holes that were used to pour hot oil on intruders or spear them if they tried to sneak in. Watch out, Johanna. After our morning there, we were honored to meet Latif Akar, who discovered the city back in 1972. He explained how it happened.
He found the underground city at 1972, and for some years he used that as a cold air storage underground. And then later on he started to use that as a private museum, to run that as a private museum. Later on the municipality came and cleaned the whole area, and it became an official museum.
We are now in Ankara, the capital city of Turkey, and I think you're going to be surprised by what you see here. Our next stop will be the mausoleum of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the founder of the modern Turkish Republic. We have arrived just in time for the changing of the guard, and while that happens, I'll tell you a little about Ataturk. From 1922 to 1938, just 15 years, he brought Turkey out of the severe poverty of centuries of Sultan rule to eventually become one of the world's highly industrialized countries that is currently being wooed to become a member of the European Union. Ataturk did this by moving towards a more capitalist economy with human rights that allowed women to uncover their faces, vote, and even hold office. But as we have seen on the news, more needs to be done. With half of Turkey's population less than 30 years old and well educated, they will play an ever-increasing role in the direction of the country's political future. Many there hope this unrest is the first step towards a more democratic Turkey. Time will tell. In accordance with the wishes of Ataturk, the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations was opened in 1968 and is considered one of the finest museums in the world. Housed in a 15th century market, it's home to the best artifacts discovered throughout Turkey. As Anatolia is one of the cradles of civilization, a tour through the museum parallels a passage through human history. These pieces, at least 4,500 years old and of pure gold, are from Troy, the city immortalized in Homer's epic poem, the Iliad. And just a few weeks ago, a rare 2,500-year-old brooch, stolen in 1965, was returned to the museum. Called the Winged Seahorse, it was found in Germany and is currently valued at more than $40 million. A lot of history, but Turkey is more than that. It's a major exporter of figs, apricots, olives, and hazelnuts. Yogurt originated in Turkey, and most interesting to me, cherries were first grown in the Karasis region of Turkey on the Black Sea. And from that beginning, they are now grown throughout the world. And I have become addicted to sour cherry juice that you can get just about anywhere over here. And it tastes just like a fresh baked cherry pie. And with that fact, our Turkish adventure comes to a close with a toast to all of you loyal viewers. Oh, delicious. For Across the Fence, I'm Lyn Jarvis near Ankara, Turkey, and thank you for watching.
Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.